like to call this meeting to order, please. Would you join us in the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Okay. Let's start with the approval of the minutes of the February the 18th, 2020 meeting, please.
So moved.
Mr. Wilkerson? Second. Ms. Smith? Oh, yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody sign in and speak today, Mr. Ellis?
No, sir.
Okay. Let's go to presentations reports then. And Mr. Roy, John Roy's going to be here. He's going to talk to us about the transportation, and his assistant, Jeff Dyer, is with him if you have any questions. The floor is yours, Mr. Roy.
Good afternoon. I want to pass a couple things out to you guys this afternoon. The first is going to be blue and yellow sheets that we use for our routes. I'll let you take a look at those for a second before I get into explaining exactly what those
Thank you, sir.
Give you a couple of different examples. Two different drivers. It's complete with a list of all of their students that they pick up, their phone numbers, their grade. The first column there is the number of stop that they are. And it also gives you a cumulative time that they're picked, well, not on this one. A cumulative mileage that they're picked up. Tammy puts these together usually around, we ask for those, the date is usually around October, but we have all those before October because we have to submit some numbers to the State Department. This helps us whenever we have issues that come up, trying to locate students. She also puts together this bus route descriptions, which goes in more detail. I didn't bring so I don't know if you guys want me to pass it around or not, but has a list of all of our drivers' age, a list of all of their routes, and a more clear description of their routes. Typically, we would give these out to substitute drivers. All bus drivers have one. We would give one out to all subs so that if we have somebody who's subbing for one of those drivers, they can pick this up and look at it and see where every stop is, at what time those students will be picked up in addition to that.
So these two, the yellow and blue, coincide with that, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But if there are any, I keep one of these at my desk over here just in case I have to, if I'm on the phone and a parent calls, it's really handy to have.
John, like for instance, this, you say these are numbered here, so on this particular one, the person, the number one means that's the first stop they make in the morning?
Yep, if you look at that column, it should say stop, but I think there's a whole.
Okay. And then this tells what time they pick up the student? Is that
Yes,
what
sir.
that time is? Okay.
In that first stop, you would have 2 students picked up. Second stop, if we're looking at the same.
Okay, I'll look at it. Okay.
They would have 1. Third stop, there would be 3 kids picked up there. Fourth stop, there would be 1 student. Fifth stop, there would be 1. Or actually, fifth, there would be 2 there.
Yeah.
And it's complete with the grades and the time that they start their run. It doesn't give the cumulative times that they stop, but this route description book does.
Now on this one, this other person, you know, it actually has the time for the other times in it.
Right, and we encourage them to complete that, do all of that, but sometimes we have to chase people down to make sure that it's all completed.
But if I'm a substitute now, I know by using, and I have a book like that blue book, right, if I'm a substitute?
Yes.
So I know this particular run now, if this is run number 14 and 8, I guess we have. So in that little book, it'll give descriptions of those 2 runs.
Just as an example here, on this route number 1, you leave the storage at Bus Garage at 5:55 a.m., travel Route 3 to Woodville, turn right at Witten's gas station on Horse Creek, travel 2.5 miles to Dog Hollow, and turn bus at mouth of Dog Hollow. So it gives a description all the way through the route, the stops, and where they would turn around and come back through, and also for the evening run as well.
I know in the past we've had conversations here about what students ride, what bus, and the number of students that ride a bus. So by looking at this, you'd be able to tell that, wouldn't you?
You would, excuse me. There are some times that we have to make bus changes just based on individual needs, sometimes of students, but typically if they're within that district on that run, then they're going to be on this list. And we always add to them when we get new kids coming in.
Anybody else have any questions about the list we was given?
And also we want to tell them that the substitute is in there. If they have any questions, there's something.
Gives the bus number and the route number and the name.
There's a lot more description in these books that we pass out to everyone. On the subject of subs, we have any more questions about what you see there? On the subject of substitutes, we had, since our last update, we had 4 subs come on. 2 of those which came right into positions. We had 2 resignations, so we're back down to 2 subs, actually 1.5, because we have a situation where one of those subs is driving half-time as well. So we're in a little bit better shape than we were as far as subs go, but we still have both mechanics on runs in the morning, and sometimes we have to use those guys in the evening as well. In our classes that we have right now, we have 9 people who are scheduled to finish, which is a pretty big number. 3 of those will be ready in the next couple of weeks. They already have their paperwork in, CDLs, and they just have to, they'll be ready to test and begin driving within a couple of weeks. So hopefully we can get all those 9, and then that'll definitely ease the burden that we have.
What do you attribute getting those 9 from?
Well, I don't know, maybe it was me being on the news.
Well,
but also I know that a lot of times some of our staff will put things on social media about needing bus drivers, and typically that we have people come. We actually had a gentleman come in today, and I think what we're finding a lot of is that the coal mines, some of those are shutting down, so these guys are looking for work who are out of work. But different situations
you
like
had your
that.
train where they could go over to the high school, and Jeff didn't all do that.
Yeah, we done that once. We went over and let them actually drive the bus, and we cleared it with the state. They said as long as you're on your property, as long as someone had a valid driver's license and you had a CDL driver with them, they could actually get in the bus, drive it, see if that's something they might want to do, because a lot of people will just look at that bus and say, oh, you know, that's big, I can't drive a bus, I can't do this. But once they actually get in them and drive them and see that they can, and we take them out and let them maneuver them around and take them and back them into the loading docks and stuff like that, once they see they can do it, then they get interested and they come and do it. We have I think like 3 or 4 out of that group that we done that with that is here and driving now. And a lot of them said they wouldn't have been there if they hadn't have been able to get in the seat and see if they could do it.
Yeah, I don't think I'd want to get to see, but.
You ought to come try it.
Better have it in a big area.
We're really excited about having that many people in that class. And like I said, it'll be a big help to us when that time comes, if they're all able to sub. It'll be a big help to us. But we have to have something to drive as well. And you guys know that we're always at the limit with the buses we have. We have 2 down now with blown motors, trying to rebuild those. How many spares do we have?
We don't have none right now. Our spares, we got 1 in the shop, 2 with blowed engines, 1 with the transmission out. And it's just hard to keep them running.
So we're in a situation where sometimes we have to double up on runs, and these blue and yellow sheets that you have will help us in determining what kids we're on. Maybe we had to double up a run, and somebody's not sure where a student is, and those help us in that area. But that leads us to the next thing, which is bus purchases for next year. We met yesterday and spoke with some gentlemen from Worldwide, and they're trying to work something out similar to the payment that we're making now, a quarterly payment. That'll be somewhere in the neighborhood. We're looking from anywhere from 10 to hopefully more, but 10 is probably a reasonable 10 or 11 buses that we would have over the course of 5 years to pay for. And they're supposed to get back to us on those numbers.
What's the time frame on that?
Just as soon as they can give us those, we'll have them. And
Well, let me ask you, when does our current lease finish?
the last payment is in August, I
Yep.
think we said, August of next year. So we'll be set to, if we do that, our first payment will come in, I think we talked about November.
So after that.
Right, after that last payment.
Have you decided what size buses you're going to get this time?
I think that we had decided on 70.
We got 3
77.
special needs buses and 1 66 passenger that would have to go like Aaron's Creek and Hamilton's Creek due to the road conditions. And then the others will be 77s.
That's what I'm getting at, the road conditions. I was on one Sunday night, I don't know how you can get a bus over.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised at what those guys get in and out of. I've actually been with them when they backed out some of those roads as well. So
Are these to be gasoline powered or diesel?
we're looking at gas, and there's a couple of reasons why, and Jeff can probably explain to you the diesel mechanic part of it, but it seems to be more cost effective for us. The one that we're not working on any of those gas buses that we had before. They really all we're doing for those are PMs and changing brakes and all that preventative stuff that you normally would do. We're running into trouble with the diesels and being able to get those fixed in a timely manner. And sometimes you have to have them towed. Sometimes somebody will come in and look. So it's a lot less work on those gasolines, at least from what I've been told and just what I've seen here in the garage.
How many gasoline ones are we using right now?
Right now, we're using 3, and yesterday I drove one. It has 32,000 miles on it right now for one of them that we purchased, and all we've done is oil change, keep them greased, and put a set of front brakes on it, which we had to do that when it came in from within 10,000 miles because the road or the drums they put on them are so thin, and when you're stopping, it got it hot and it would shake with you. So I went and bought the bigger, thicker drums, the heavier duty, and the better brake shoes and put on it than what come from the factory on it. And we put those on it, we've had no issue. But with the gasoline buses, like I say, we have no issues with them so far. I think it's gonna be a better way to go, because a lot of you, if you'd like to see what it does to those diesel engines, I have some things laying in the garage over there. You all can come over and look anytime. I'll show you what a EGR cooler is. A lot of you don't know, and a DPF and a DOC. If anybody's ever seen like a big catalytic converter, that's what the DPF and the DOC is. They're about this big around and about that long, and when that cooler goes out, it dumps antifreeze in the motor and into the exhaust, and you've got the exhaust that's like 1200 degrees, and it dumps that antifreeze in on it, and it'll just bust it. It's like a big honeycomb in there, and it'll just bust it, and then it clogs everything up. And then for just those two items, you're talking $4,000 to $5,000. Then $1,800 for the cooler that busted. And hopefully it didn't dump it in on the pistons and blow the motor up like these others did.
Now, as far as being able to find fuel for those gasoline, what's the plan?
Well, that was my next thing. I was
Go
going
ahead.
to give you what we have here as far as a quote from the company on putting a tank in at Guyan Valley next to the existing tank. We would be responsible for the concrete pad and unloading it. That comes in at $23,000. I'll be looking for some other quotes as well. But that's just kind of an example of the range that we're talking about there with that. We think that if we have that tank at Guyan Valley, given the amount of buses that we're going to get, and I think we're going to have one bus in the Duval area, one in Ranger, a new one.
Yeah, and a couple in Hearts.
And a couple in Hearts. Those will have 100-gallon tanks on them, so the one tank we have there and the one gasoline tank we have here will probably be sufficient for us to move forward with that.
Are those tanks 100-gallon larger than the others, or typical of what?
Yes, the ones we got now are usually 60, 55 to 60 gallon. So the new buses, I had them to spec them out with 100-gallon tanks, which you would probably, you're looking at one time a week, usually to fill up. So that would make it a whole lot easier, because, and a lot of them would be in here one time a week anyway at one of the two places. So that would save the cost of putting a tank at Duval and one at Hart also. So.
And the bus we rode yesterday, it seemed to have enough power that, you know, we have all these hills, 14 Mile Mountain and Sumerco and the hill over here. It did well. A lot of people argue the diesel versus gasoline, but I thought it was plenty. If we can do 30 miles, 37 miles an hour at the top of the hill, then that's plenty for our needs.
And that's from a dead stop halfway up the hill. So.
Oh, really?
So we're making quarterly payments now on the buses that we have. We want to be able to continue to do the same.
Yeah, we want to be right around the same payment that we're doing now. So we may have to back off on the number of buses that we'll be able to get. Maybe we just have to wait and see what they come up with.
What they tell us yesterday, Jeff, how long, we say 3 months from the time we ordered
90 days from the time we order them, they'll have them in.
We would want them prior to the new school year.
Yes.
Summer would be good, the ideal, I think.
Yes, we're talking here the next month or so.
Yes.
right?
But we wouldn't be under any obligation to make our first payment until October, November, whatever you
November-ish.
The time they come in, he said right around November or something like that, it'd be.
Even though we ordered them.
Yes.
Or maybe even have got.
Yeah, they don't start the payment or nothing until the buses are delivered. So,
I said, as far as the tank itself, we still have to look for, that'll have to come first. So we'll have to move a little quicker on that. And once I find something, these guys seem to be the only local company that does that.
they're the only ones we could ever get to bid on them, I mean, or to do anything.
Are you eligible to get the 90% reimbursement if you, for the tank?
I think so. If I'm not mistaken, that's something we'd have to have Ray to check on. But I think because it's due with fuel, and these guys here with that quote, they're the ones that does all their work on our fuel master. They're the one that, the fueling system we got. They do all their work on our pumps. And like I say, I've contacted 2 or 3 different places, but this is the only one that would send a quote. And the others, well, it's either too far out or whatever to do, or they don't have the time. But they will do, with this, they will wire it into the existing fuel master that we have, so we don't have to buy another one, and they just program that to run another tank. Just like it is out here with tank 1 and tank 2.
Since you've already checked with other places, do we have to bid this out?
We'll have to try to get some additional quotes.
But since he's already tried, we still have to do that?
Ray can answer that question better than I can, as far as.
There's always somebody out there that does this kind of work. There's somebody in Logan that does that, around that area. We mentioned that the other day. We just haven't got together to do it.
Okay. Now this one here, he contacted me, he gave me this quote a while back, and he said that,
It's good until March.
starting March 1st, they notified him that the cost of the tanks will go up.
It's not long.
So, and there may be some additional cost in it if we don't, whatever, if we don't get it done before then or whatever, but he said as long as he said, or you call and say, well, you know, we want you to do this, he'll lock that price down. So, we'll see if we can get somebody, find somebody here in the next day or 2 that'll send us a quote.
Well, I guess the board, first you have to have some type of commitment that we want to go with gasoline, don't you?
I think
What do you all think?
that's what Jeff and them recommend, that buy that.
Brandon, you have any thoughts?
I mean, given the differential in maintenance costs between the gasoline and diesel, the gas engines or gas buses are holding up. Yeah, with all this pollution control stuff, I mean, it really eliminates the prior advantage of a diesel engine.
Okay. So everybody seems to think maybe they should proceed on working to try to lock down the tank price. Everybody's pretty much there, so.
We'll take care of that
Be
in the
good
next
for us.
few days.
Ray might be able to figure out somebody else who can get some quotes.
We got the text out there.
Well, even if you contact them, it doesn't take,
Well, you can get it, you can take it over the phone, can't you?
How much is it?
It's
23,000.
This was 23.
You
Yeah.
can take,
really close to not being able to do
Was it
that.
25 or something?
25 is a cutoff for, you gotta have written 3, written close 50, you gotta advertise it and have 3 written. Sometimes the law will allow you to just put, you know, that there was no bid, no bid.
That's what I mean, if
get
you
to this-
contact, like these people you were talking about, if you show that you made an attempt to get them.
You gotta have something that says, I don't wanna bid on this more or less, to protect yourself, where it's not under like a protected bid, like state contract or something like that. And I did this in Logan, I had a lot of trouble one time, and, but somehow I got 3 bids, I just can't remember the companies that I got the 3 bids from. But you can't just stay local, there's somebody in Logan, in that area, that does that kind of work, they install, but he's not, he doesn't sell them, you gotta kind of work with the 2 of them. So maybe they've worked up some kind of turnkey installation that's a little bit more unique. And not everybody who does that work sells the tanks.
Right, and I found with purchasing a food truck and box and refrigeration units, all separately, sometimes they'll do things together, package deals, and you can't compare that to somebody who only offers one of those things. So we have to make sure it's apples to apples.
And this tank price too, this is everything updated now to EPA standards, because if you remember back not too long ago, we had to have them to come in over there and do about $9,000 worth of work to that tank in order to bring it up to standards, because they'd changed it. You had to have different gauges, you had to have all that different stuff to it, so this is all up to date.
I think that's where that'd be our desire.
Okay. That's all I have for
Do
you.
you want to tell us anything about your trip? You mentioned the food truck here.
It was a bumpy trip out, I'll say that much. People were chuckling at me when I drove across the lot, and I wondered what all the hoopla was
For those-
about. Once I got in there and took off, I realized what they were laughing at.
Tell us, where did you go to?
Henderson, Kentucky, just across the river from Evansville, Indiana.
And then and what was the purpose of going there?
Went there to get the van body installed on the truck that we purchased. From there, I had to take it to Charleston. So it was a 3-day trip. We just take the truck out, stay in a hotel, went and picked the truck up, drove it back. But the trip out was pretty entertaining for, I guess, the guy behind me. But
Well, the next time, you'll be experienced, won't you?
we saved $1,500.
We just used you as a guinea pig.
Yeah. I'll nominate somebody else for that next time.
So then you went to Charleston, what happened when you got to Charleston?
I just dropped it off at Burger King. They called me yesterday and said it was ready.
So, I mean, what, they put the
They
refrigeration?
put the refrigeration in it. I guess they will show me how to use it properly, so it'll be ready to come back and deliver those commodities out.
One last thing before we leave. A few months ago, we had an issue with a dog on a special ed bus. Has that been taken care of?
But yeah, we're still, the dog's still there and everything's
So the kid
going
that's
okay.
afraid of it, did still run the bus or what?
Yeah, I think, I haven't heard anything about the situation.
Disclosed at this time.
Okay. So as far as I know, it's worked out okay.
Okay, good.
Okay, anything from anyone regarding transportation, anything else? Everything seems to be going well. Get those buses and those drivers.
We'll be ready to roll.
Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's, next on our presentation is Mr. Ellis is going to talk about finance. Give us an update, right?
Okay, I'll try to be brief again. I will say this, since John just did a presentation, I don't know, at least once or twice a week, John will come into my office and say, hey, listen, I gotta do this, how do we do it? So, you know, I gotta get quotes here, do I gotta advertise it or what? So he always asks a lot of questions, so I never expect John to ever be the, you know, his name be associated with an audit finding, because,
Well,
you
that's
know,
what
he
you
always,
want, isn't it?
he always asks good questions. But regarding that tank, there was a company up in that Logan area that installed them, but we would always have to buy the tanks separate. But this guy, he actually, anytime we had a problem with anything, we'd call him, he'd come and fix it. I mean, he was that close. He wasn't in Logan, I think he was like north of Charleston, but it wasn't that big of a deal. And I tried to bid that out, and there was a lot of problems associated with that. And it was after we had the issue in Charleston when we had to buy new tanks. We couldn't just upgrade ours. We had to buy several new tanks. And that happened not long before I came here, and I can't remember the results of everything. Seems like it was such a process. Even whenever I came here, they weren't completely installed yet. So, but I got some questions going out to some people about the bids that I did. I can't remember those companies and who actually came back with information. We met, of course, the other day in a closed session, and really the only thing that I wanted to update, you know, there's people in here that weren't in there, but I'd like to go back to what we talked about the other day. As far as the handout that I gave you, go through that, you can look through there. Sometimes you find errors in there or something that looks out of whack. A lot of times what happens whenever you see that is just a simple coding issue. Sometimes things will get coded to the wrong object code, it'll throw something out of whack. I think one year, Mr. Wilkerson caught where we were putting our new gas, when we got those new gas buses, we were coding that to oil, so it really looked out of whack when we were spending $20,000 on oil. You know, we don't have to spend that much, so if you see something that catches your eye, let me know. And it's good to have, you know, several other sets of eyes looking at that. And it helps it whenever we do the financials, everything looks more in tune. But what I was able to talk to you about the other day, and I'll do it now, is we started a budgeting process with that meeting. And I've looked at the state aid formula going forward to next year and what I'm gonna have to budget. And I've also looked at the tax revenue we've had this year as compared to last year at the same time. And since I've been here, we've always done that. I think the first year I was here, we were down about $100,000 after the first quarter, and we stayed that way during the course of the year. And in 17, 18, I think some of our numbers actually increased. But now we're going back down, and last year, just like this year, we're down about close to $250,000 in tax collections as compared to last year. And last year, we were down $250,000 compared to the year before. So we're seeing this downward trend. So you think it's roughly almost $500,000 from 2 years ago that we're down at this point. And we may gain some of that back this year, or we may lose more. January, February's been just a little bit better this year than what they were last year, but I don't know if that trend is going to continue or not. But when you couple that with the fact that the state aid formula, they're going to cut $575,000 that we were getting from this year, well, we're getting this year to next year. Last year there was an increase of $360,000. Now we're getting cut $575,000. So that's roughly, what is that, 800,000, close to it, that we're going to be down from this year to next year. And when you look at our certified list and you see that we've done well, we're only 3 or 4 over on our professional side, but we're still 30 over on our service side. When you take into account how much of that, everybody we're over formula we have to pay for out of county funds, or we have to find some place to take that money from, whether it's state aid formula or county formula. That's roughly, I did a calculation earlier, I think it's 1.3 million that we're over formula we have to pay for somewhere. So when you add up all that, that's close to $2 million we have to make up in order to have a surplus at any given time going forward, because these are projections for next year. The only thing we know for sure is that state aid formula, we're not getting that $575,000. Everything else is a projection, and it's kind of a safe projection. So what I'm trying to get at is, we did pretty well last year with the Indian. We were able to stick people in different grants and cover salaries. I don't see us being able to do that going forward, because we're gonna lose so much from this year to next year with that state aid cut and the taxes. If we keep having that downward trend, it's gonna be, you know, rough this time next year whenever we go into personnel season. I think, you know, given where we were at a few years ago to right now, we keep losing students, and we keep losing $1 million every year in state aid and taxes, and it just seems like it's everywhere. We keep losing all this money, and we still come out in the black. I can't project where we'll be at this year, but, you know, I think we're gonna be okay. But next year, I think, is when it's gonna be getting really rough. And, you know, there's things out there that we have to worry about, like Duval. If that ever comes and we have to build something over there, you know, I've told you before, if we have an emergency grant from the SBA, you still have to meet 25% of that up front. They'll give you sometimes, you know, if they approve it, or if the need is there, and that council, you know, thinks that that's something that is really for the safety of kids is needed. And if it's an $8 million project, that's $2 million we have to come up with, and we're not there now. We've been doing well for the last 2 or 4 years. We keep having a surplus. If we keep losing kids, the state aid formula is going to keep dropping, and we still got the same number of teachers. So, you know, each kid that we lose is roughly really close to $6,000 according to the state aid formula. That fluctuates every year. Going forward next year, they project that to be about $5,962, I think, real close to $6,000 per kid, and we lost 96 kids. And I think right now we've lost, we may top that this year.
Well, we've lost 57
Since October 1. So, that's another $350,000 right there that we can foresee for the school year of 2022. So, you know, I wish I could come in here and tell you that the future's bright and all that, but it's not. It's that simple.
So this, what Mr. Midkiff mentioned, these additional students is 350. She said that would be in addition to what you told us just prior to.
Well, yeah, but that will go forward to the following year. Everything I'm talking about, they take the certified list that is due the 1st of October.
Right.
And then they look at the number of kids that you have in October, and they decide how they're going to, they work together. But roughly, if you don't have the kids, you don't get money for them, whether you got certified teachers or not.
A couple of years from now, the impact could be very great.
Every year it's been great. So
I mean, I don't mean great in a good way. I mean,
it's gonna, at some point, we're gonna get to where we can't find places to pay people unless we come straight out of just county funds. I mean, it's just, I've always given the staff, Kirk, Ricky, John, Angie, everybody, we've always found places to put people and to save money. The staff, you know, and I never took any credit for this because it was in place when I got here. Everybody was really conservative. They all had the mindset, well, we can't do that if we don't have the money, or we got to find a place here. I got a grant, we'll stick them here. It's all perfectly fine. We've increased the number of people. When I first got here, you were only allowed to stick so many people in step 7. Well, now we found a way that they let us stick, I think, 50% of whatever that amount is. It's like $360,000. Well, we filled that up. We used all of it. Something that me and Jeff and Bill talked about last year doing, and we did it. But that's still part of the formula. That's step 7. I think if those people are still considered part of the formula, but we're not paying them out of county. We know that's coming right out of that state money. So that's not county money we're giving up. When you look at all these costs, you have to look at sub-costs. And we've analyzed this over the last couple of years, that in the state aid formulas built sub-costs, and I can't remember the number, I don't have it in front of me, but it's several $100,000, maybe $500,000 that they allow you for service and professional, but our costs are $1.5 million. So you take that and put it on top of the $2 million I just told you about. So it keeps adding up. And of course, that's not something new. That's been going on for several years. So it's not something new for 2021. That's just a cost that we have to cover. And I just have a bad feeling with these numbers all going down. You know, before the state aid formula was going up, something was positive, and that's not the case now. So, and if we keep losing enrollment, it's going to keep going downward. But that's really kind of, you know, doom and gloom finance report. It'd be nice to come in here cheery and tell you how great everything was, and you have a transfer list, everybody coming into the county, every board meeting, but that's just not the case.
Well, we just have to deal with it as it comes, I guess. And enjoy it.
That, you really have no choice. It's just,
It seems like, from what you told us, this year, preparing the budget for next year is going to be difficult. But the year after that may be even more difficult.
and I think it will. It depends on what happens with, you know, how many retirements you have and whether your enrollment goes up or down, which, you know, I don't think there's much hope for enrollment to spike up 200 or 300 kids. I don't think that's just not going to happen. Unless somebody decides to build a plant or something right here in Hamlin, that might help. But something needs to change, or I think that our carryover being positive is not going to be there for very long. And you're going to go back. And every year I've been here, we've had a positive number. And I think last year it grew to over $1 million. But that can get wiped out with one bad year. That will be gone really quick if maybe next year, whenever the financials are done for the 2021 school year, I can foresee being in the hole. So it doesn't take much. And, you know, if we have to do anything in Duval, you're in the hole no matter what, because you have to come up with that money if you know, if you're going to match that grant. Which we were told it'd be $8 million to do that. We'd have to come up with $2 million right then. You got to have that then. You can't build that up. So that is something they can just get rid of that money really fast.
Yeah.
So, you know, we talk about this stuff often, things that can go wrong, you know, and trying to head things off at the pass. And Mr. Meekiff does a pretty good job at that. And we plan, you know, how can we work around this, or what can we do? But I think there's some things that can happen that we would be in a lot of trouble really quick. We would be on a watch list.
Okay, well, we've been forewarned.
The budget is not going to be fun to do this year. I think next year it will be even worse.
Okay, anybody have anything else, Mr. Ellis? No, you made our day, Ray, thank you.
Debbie Downer again, I'm sorry. I know Carol and I have joked about that, but
Well, reality.
you wanted the truth. President Tom Cruise.
Okay. All right, that's the last of our reports. Let's go to the administrative section. Have a motion, please? Fred made that one.
Second.
Carol seconded that. Ms. Vicky.
Okay, item A, school volunteers who on occasion may also serve as bus chaperones for athletic events, academic competitions, or school outings, and have completed volunteer orientation. Item B, an out-of-state trip for Jerry Cummings, July 13th through the 18th, 2020, for the ASE Automotive Conference in Frisco, Texas.
Okay. That's all the short administrative section there. Anybody have any questions about either one of those? Not said them all yes on the administrative?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go to the finance section then. So have a motion for those?
So moved.
Mr. Wilkerson, second by Ms. Smith. You're up again, Ray.
Schedule of invoices totaling $309,094.34. That listing is attached. And as always, if you have any questions, let me know.
Anybody else have anything? Done all yes on finance?
Yes.
Yes, very good, okay. Let's go to personnel then. Motion? Fred made that one.
I second.
Rowdy seconded that. It was a sign, but I thought it was going to have Okay. Mr. King?
Yes, sir. Item A is leave of absence. Item B, retirement, resignations. Not a lot happening in personnel this week, but it's going to get interesting next week.
Well, I don't know what that means.
There's a lot of interviews that need to take place, and I gave you your green sheets there. Due to travel and illness, we've not been able to do the proper interviews, but there will be some action coming.
About with these, in regard to these, you mean?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And the posting that'll
Okay.
go up tomorrow.
I thought there was.
Well, I didn't know either. I was like,
I like to see that look every once in a while.
Well, thank you.
I
You
get
got
that at
everybody's
home, so I
attention.
might as well get it here too.
Okay. Anybody have any questions about those that are on the items that are on there right now? If not, is that an all yes vote on personnel items?
Yes.
All yes. John even gave us a look like, what's going to happen?
Oh, I have questions, but I won't get any answers.
If we acknowledge you're here.
Thank you.
Okay, board members, anybody have anything? Anything?
I'll mention
Mr.
something.
Wilkerson?
Yeah, I'll mention something here that's really nice, so often everything's negative. All board members received a copy of a letter from a couple of sisters that are students at Lincoln County High School. To make this real quick, they didn't have anything negative to say, first of all, and they had a suggestion that the county board might consider using snow day packets, and they had some suggestions on how these would be put together and how it might help with students to keep abreast during the days when schools are closed. I think it would be nice if, I don't think, Jeff, you didn't get it, right?
no, I can make a copy.
He's going to.
I thought it would be nice if one of the board members, maybe the president of the board, send the girls a letter thanking them. It's so rare to have something this nice come to us.
Well, as we know from our past meeting, next week on March the 3rd will be when we have our comment period for the school calendar for next year, and that's what this is regarding.
Right.
So we'll take that into its context, and then, like I say, there may be, I don't know, if some desire to come, they can speak on the calendar. Mr. Mickey, when are we going to actually vote on next year's calendar?
I see that we have their next public hearing is March 3rd, and it'll be sometime around 1st of April.
Okay.
It'll be on the agenda for approval.
So we'll get possibly some comments next week, and of course, we have this letter that we know of, that anybody, may feel free to, that we'll vote in the next 2 or 3 weeks after that. Okay, Mr. Wilkerson, anything else?
That's
Okay. Anybody else have anything? No. All right. I don't have anything, then, but Mr. Mickey, if you still desire an executive session?
Yes, and I also want to mention before we
Go ahead.
The CEFP committee meets Thursday night, 6 p.m. They are getting very close to finalizing a list of prioritized projects to take on the road for these community meetings that we'll be scheduling. I anticipate being able to share with you next week, because Greg Gosney will be on the board agenda for a maintenance update on the 3rd. Some additional information, because I want to get those dates out there, and Sean, if you can help us with that, I'll be greatly appreciated. So I'm thinking probably sometime mid-March to late March, those community meetings will start. And we're looking at, right now, we're talking about 4 meetings, one for the Ranger Hearts area, one for the Guy Valley West Hamlin area, one for the Hamlin Lincoln County High School area, and then a meeting for the Duval Midway area, at a minimum, 4 meetings. But you're invited, as always, to attend meetings, and
It's 6 o'clock here. We may have chicken again. She may get tired of chicken.
Now, do you have a proposed schedule or tentative schedule? What happens as far as the day after those hearings or those meetings, community meetings?
No, we haven't scheduled anything out past Thursday night's meeting. So then we'll talk about what's going to happen next and develop a timeline. It is my understanding in talking to Mr. Ferguson, or Dave Ferguson, that the deadline to get everything approved has been moved forward to, I think it says either August or September now, because there were some issues with the online system where we were entering, you know, our data in there. I don't think it's going to do anything to our schedule. We still want to be finished by the 1st of May is our goal. So that's what we're shooting.
Okay, sounds good. Anything else? Other than request for executive session?
That's all.
Okay, and the purpose of this executive session, please?
Personnel.
Okay, at 1:51, Mr. Midkiff is requesting executive session for personnel matters. Mrs. Smith made the motion.
Second.
Mr. Curry seconded that. He beat you.
That's fine.
You got advances, the time difference.
Yeah, I got about 3/4 second time delay.
That's right, that's right. Okay, is that an all yes to go into executive session for personnel matters?
Yes.
All right. 1:51. Thank you, everybody.